That's a cool avatar, man. I'm digging it.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Just one of the public ones.
right on. What you been up to, man? How's your week?
Oh, I am extremely nocturnal right now, so it's a lot of staying up late and playing games, doing schoolwork, stuff like that.
Yeah, what are you in school for?
I'm pursuing a master's degree right now in information technology, so a lot of deep writing, deep thought, a lot of theories and hypothetical.
Yeah, I've seen you talk a little bit about like the like AI stuff, like VR stuff. You've been writing some like
hmm
papers and whatnot. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's like the latest one you've written? Not to get like too deep into it. I don't know.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. So latest one is probably say something about like physics, but it was more mathematical. As for like hypotheticals and stuff, it'd probably be how technology could influence life in the future. So it's more of like if we pursue how we are right now, what direction would it end up going? So my theory is based on the COVID situation that VR will, of course, start becoming a larger thing, which we're kind of already seeing. Half-Life Alex came out, everyone was all on board with that, but now we have more users in VR because of it. So people who are stuck at home are now like, oh, I have nothing else to do. Let me just, pop over Rec Room, VR chat, alt space to enjoy, this, that, and the other, and just kind of go for it. It's kind of more of getting to the point where, as an economic culture, we're getting used to things being delivered to our house. We can deliver stuff on Amazon, wait 2-3 days, however shipment goes, and that's it. There's no point for going to a grocery store unless you want like a nice cut of steak.
Yeah, man. I was thinking about like I've almost forgotten what it's like before Amazon. Yeah, because like anything now, if the individual lives in like a city or a place where Prime is like really accessible, it's like it's so
Mhm.
much better than going to like Walmart or Target and having to wait in line and get
For
the
sure.
item. Um, it's crazy.
And you have the whole like the driving over there. You have to now get up in the morning and go, okay, I'm gonna go to Walmart today, or to a grocery store. So now I gotta pick out clothes for that, do this and the other. Where you can wake up and go, oh, hey, Amazon, let me just boop boop boop. Wait 2-3 days. Giant tub of cheese balls at your door.
Yeah, yeah, it's a trip. I remember, it's crazy like how easy it is to take it for granted, because it's kind of always, for the most part, it feels like it's always been around, even though it's been, maybe a decade that like Amazon is
Mhm.
as widely adopted as it is now. Remember, have you ever heard of Alan Watts at all?
I feel like I know the name.
Yeah, he's sort of like a philosopher. He kind of brought a lot of like the Eastern ways of thinking into like a more Western mindset. But he's kind of given the example of like if you had like a button that you could click and get anything delivered to you. He's talking about this in like the 50s, right? Like 1950 something. He's like, if you had a button, right, and you could
Mhm.
click it and you could just have stuff delivered to you, like, what would be the effect of that on the human race? And I think his ultimate conclusion was like we'd get really bored of it, and we'd want like a surprise, right? We'd want some sort of um, uh, upheaval of like the normal day to day because we just have everything that we'd want at our fingertips, and I feel like we're kind of in that, but there's also like the side of like, okay, we do have everything at our fingertips, but not really, because there's the whole like capitalism side attached to it, where like you gotta work for stuff even though it's there. You
Yeah,
still gotta work for it. So it's interesting.
it's kind of weird that he predicted it because I don't know. Maybe you remember it from a few years ago, but Amazon actually has a thing where you can and press a button and get, that specific thing delivered to your door. Like, oh, hey, I'm running low on, like, I don't know, like laundry detergent. You have this little, like, button that's no bigger than your palm. You just click it, like, okay, orders sent through the button. And it's just like, there it is. The downfall of that is, like, instant dopamine. You press the button, you're like, yay, I don't need to do that anymore. So it's, like, no responsibility because of the instant dopamine. Then you get into the chemical imbalance. And just like nicotine, you consume so much, you get a tolerance to it. And now just like people are at home, they're constantly, trying to beat the Facebook feed or Reddit, whatever it is, and you're not going to get it. It's constant taking it in. You build up a tolerance, and then you need something stronger. You may not realize it, but
Yeah. My hope is that there'll be like a sort of like a maybe more awareness of it, and I think there is as we progress further into the technology. Like, I've seen a lot of videos on the side of YouTube recommended for like dopamine detox, right? Where it's like this concept of like removing those type of little dopamine kicks that we all get. And it's interesting, like, yeah, I feel like nobody could have predicted that these little tablets that Steve Jobs introduced or Apple introduced would have such a profound effect on the wiring of our brains. So that was one paper you wrote, like the effect of technology on humanity. Were you looking at like within the next decade, or how far into the future were you theorizing?
So with the assignment, we had to latch on to one specific innovation in technology. So I chose VR because it's like I'm at home, COVID situation, can't really go anywhere. Why not? Let me do something that I'm going through. But if you look at it more into the other technological stuff, you can see definitely a rise. Because the whole point of technology, and well, this is my opinion, of course, it's innovation to increase the quality of life. So you can think of it like when we got smartphones. I don't know if you remember the old flip phones and, the slider keyboards and stuff that's like at the bottom. There was always like, oh, I'm going to hang up on someone, close the phone, and you're like, yes, that snap. Or you send the text and you slide the keyboard back in, just slide it into your pocket. Cool. But then, like, you get a smartphone and you're like, I'm just going to, touch this for the first time. And, maybe you load it up, like, the web browser on what was 3G data, which was the best we had in the time. Or maybe, like, a note app, The first time that you physically had a smartphone, and you would open the app for the first time, you were like, this is amazing. And now we do it thousands of times a day without even thinking. It's constant. Like, I'm not saying we take things for granted so much, but it's more of what we know and how we've learned it and accepted it. I've really depreciated the valued objects, if that makes sense. Like, when's the last time you've driven around and something, I'm lost, if you're in a big city, you're like, Google Maps, take me here, instead of the traditional method where you're like, I need to find the nearest gas station, and then you'd ask the person behind the counter, hey, looking for a Walgreens, and yeah, I mean, that's really it. We're more self-sufficient, but we're also more reliant on the people behind the scene. Like we were talking about Amazon, the warehouse workers, there are people who actually box up your stuff. There are people who actually tape your boxes. Because of the recent media stuff with COVID, we are aware of that. But between when Amazon started and whenever the warehouse worker stuff started in the news, we just assumed, click buy now, click checkout. Cool, somebody else's job. It's no longer, again, going back to the whole Walmart thing, it's no longer your responsibility to get it to your door. So it's kind of like a big circle in a way.
Yeah, man, I can't wait until like obviously it'd be very, it sucks for the job loss, but like when it's all automated, I feel like that's going to be really interesting. Like and like AI sorting, AI boxing, and then drones delivering it, where it's just like, God, at that point, I mean, if a company could, I feel like, perfect that loop and not have to pay as many workers, that's when, I mean, that's almost unprecedented.
Right.
I feel like we don't really know what would happen to a company if it could have that much profit just from automation.
I do feel like and this is kind of off topic, but it'll come back around in a circle. Most things I talk about go in a circle,
Sure.
So the final picture's at the end. When it comes to like, buying stuff, especially like on the food side, most people are like, oh, Amazon doesn't have these steaks, the vegetables I need. I mean, you can buy potatoes on Amazon, like, come on. But I think that's where 3D printing's getting in. And it may sound weird. I don't know if you've watched Upload VR or not.
No.
They used like a 3D printer, and it would print like a steak. And they said something inside of Upload VR, or Upload on Amazon, I guess, the Amazon Prime thing made by people who made The Office. Like, oh, your fat cartridge running, I believe, it's kind of weird to say this, I believe that's going to be somewhat of the future when it comes to like sustainability of humanity. We're going to run out of cows, we're going to run out of pigs, it's going to be something that causes, this mass extinction of animal race. And it's going to come back down to like, oh, hey, we can just do this. We can synthetically make, this steak. And believe it or not, that's actually happening. It's a real thing. Like, there's stuff already going on in the news about that, which is just insane to think,
Yeah.
You can go down to Texas Roadhouse or Outback Steakhouse or Applebee's or whatever and be like, oh, medium rare ribeye, cool. But what if you're in your own home and you're just like, medium rare ribeye? Sure,
That's a trip.
Yeah, for
God,
sure.
So like, yeah, just like loading the ingredient cartridges in and then printing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, did you ever try like the Impossible Burger from Burger King?
No, I kind of have this thing with fast food. To be honest with you, I don't do fast food as much as I want to.
That's fair, man.
And I think mainly that's just because like health stuff. And man, if I go to Burger King, I will wake up the next day with a food hangover anyway. So not for me.
Yeah, that's fair, man. Sometimes I always regret it after, but take like every couple weeks. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna splurge. But the Impossible Burger is like the one. I don't know. There's something about it. It's actually pretty solid for a fake burger. I've seen the Impossible Burger. I think it's just like vegetables and like more like standard vegetarian meat, but the concept of like lab grown meat is interesting to me because it's like it's not quite 3D printing, but like, yeah, I definitely think
it's synthetic ingredients formed to a patty, essentially.
Yeah.
Or organic and synthetic mix.
Yeah, it's I mean, if it tastes the same, like I'm fully on board with it, Yeah, man.
Believe it or not, that's not the first time something like that's happened.
Oh yeah.
And this is, 2000s, I think, mid 2000s, late 2000s. Taco Bell was actually sued for this. So they were using 90% filler of their meat for their tacos. And to pass like FDA standards, it's like 85% filler is max. And they actually got sued for it. But that concept of like synthetic ingredients has been around for that long. And I think that's why fast food is so cheap. And, like, it's not like not a slam against fast food or anything, but it's like now we're seeing this as like an innovative way to keep moving forward. People would always assume Taco Bell, oh, that's unhealthy, but it's there. Like, it's been there for a while.
Yeah, I guess it's just like when a company isn't upfront about it, right? Like when they're trying to do it under the table, like
For sure.
making their margins bigger. Yeah, that makes sense. You've been down the AI rabbit hole lately at all?
Actually, kinda, yeah. And to be honest, it's kind of thanks to you. During 24 Hour Standing, you were saying something along the lines of AI cannot formulate its own original ideas. And that's kind of what prompted me forward into, like, I need an example. So, looking at like Chess AI or Google's, I want to say a Deep Web, something like that. They were playing StarCraft 2, going against players with it. And it's like, okay. But it never once formulated its own original play. It's like, okay, so it just learns from others and does as others do. And like, I'm not a developer or programmer by any means, so I don't have any hands-on experience. I only look at this as like a theoretical side of stuff. But if we look at AI through job automation, that's perfectly acceptable. That's a 5-star AI product, like boxing up Amazon stuff, sure, absolutely, or manufacturing a car, your next Tesla, nobody could have even touched it, it could have been AI going, oh, down the chair. It could have been AI going, oh, hey, the torque on this looks fine. Maybe 45 foot-pounds is fine. But, due to like 54 recalls or 54 accidents where this is a weak point, maybe we should increase the torque. Use a heftier bolt, hefty plating. And it's just like the reasonability behind it would increase as its knowledge grows. You're going to buy a Model Y, and, by 2 years later through all this, end up with a Cybertruck, that's kind of where, like, you have to set reasonable limitations, It needs to have 5 people in it, doors need to come up like a Lamborghini in the 2000s, it's got to be a Tesla. But once you set the parameters and limitations for AI, it can't go past it. Like, it sees it as a wall or a door that it cannot open. So it very much learns what it can. It learns around the door. Like, if you said, hey, I want this homework assignment done to an AI, it needs to be about this, that, and the other, and it needs credible sources. And 70% of it needs to be original thought. Only 30% of it could be, through sources. You're only going to end up with that 30% of your paper done, because it's not going to try to fill in the blank for an original idea. And that's where humanity comes in. We are the operators, so to speak, and they just do the job. So without a mission, it can't go forward. I don't know if that makes sense at all.
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah, it's like, I think it's partly, I'm sure, due to like fiction and media and stuff, but I think at least earlier fear of AI for a lot of people was like, oh, it's gonna like overtake us. It's like this overlord thing. But I think what's interesting is seeing the more realistic side of it is, like you mentioned, it's more almost like a coworker or a tool rather, where we are almost like operating it, which then my mind immediately goes to, like, in the future, I imagine we're gonna see a lot of companies that I feel like entrepreneurs could build that are completely downsized to maybe like one or two people, with the rest of the jobs just being automated, especially like digital companies and stuff. It's exciting because it's like even now, like the example I'm thinking of is like this thing called AI writer, where it's like this very narrow kind of slice of like AI, and it's grabbing information from the web, like scouring the web for a certain topic. And it's almost like you described, where you're saying, okay, I want like 70% just kind of originality, 30%, like stuff that sounds like it's coming from an individual, and just kind of mixing these parameters, and then it spits out like an article. And usually you can tell it's written by a robot, but I mean, compared to where I imagine the technology was like in the early 2000s to where it will be in 2030, I mean, I think it's going to be very difficult to tell like what is an AI and what's a human online.
I think it'd be like insane, like, and this is just hypothetical, if you had programmed an AI to operate within a social environment, initially make them to where they don't talk. So it could be like in VR chat, you have the people who play desktop who don't talk, just walk around, they want to enjoy the environment, there's nothing wrong with that. But now picture it's an AI, it's walking around, it's looking up and down, it's gathering data, gathering sounds, gathering this, that, and the other. And then you combine that with like technologies like deepfakes. It learns voice frequency, the sound of a voice, the sound of emotion. It goes, oh, hey, this person's talking about a breakup. Their tone is sad. So that's emotion. And just like to build the social aspect of an AI. It starts with that. And then 2078, whatever, somewhere in the future, we now have like AI programmed butlers for our house. It learns who you are. It starts with a base parameter. It says, okay, here's your tasks. If the owner says, hey, I need help with the laundry, folding it, washing it, dishes, etc., cleaning up. And again, that's where we shirk duties. So that dopamine that we'd get from like mowing your lawn, you'd lose it because the AI is taking it now. And just the more you go into it, the more you realize we lose dopamine. But back to AI, I always kind of like go back to that as like a base example that technology is good because it allows us to it allows us to evolve as humans. Biological evolution really isn't possible. It's too slow, But anyway, back to AI. We lose responsibility for our daily lives. Our lives will essentially become, we wake up, we go to work, if that's even a thing anymore. We come home, we sit on the couch, play video games, go into VR, watch shows, just, hey, Julie, if that's your AI's name, make me a steak or make me, a Caesar salad freshly chopped with what would be, vegetables of the time. And it's very much like we are the masters in that sense of our domain. Like truly, that's how it would be. All through, of course, AI automation. Because it first learned how humans talk. If you need therapy, it would have, a plethora of internet resources and probably like, it would probably be like an app, like, hey, I've had a rough day. AI goes, oh, therapy automation time. Okay. Talk to you about it, ask, hey, have you tried this? Have you thought about this? Oh, you're anxious. What about breathing techniques? It just slowly get into it. And it's insane to think, like, AI isn't bad, but it's not necessarily good.
Yeah, it's almost like the internet. It's like this tool that is presented to us, and then I'm sure it's how the individual kind of uses it or programs it. I'm sure there's gonna be like terrible AIs that are just like, hell bent on killing, just like there's terrible humans, and then it's good AIs, just kind of neutral AIs. The concept of these, I want to call them like NPCs, robotic players, kind of going around these virtual worlds. I think that's interesting because
Yeah, they kind of would function as NPCs.
yeah, because like I feel like one of the main issues, at least from my limited understanding of AGI programming, is like it's really difficult for the neural networks to kind of have real world applications in which they can learn in, right? Like the physical world is so random, like there's so many variables. But I think what we're seeing with the emergence of these virtual worlds that we as humans are interacting with in a very natural way, in almost the same way as we do with physical reality, is like it's almost like now VR chat and these virtual worlds will be like the playgrounds for AIs to enter and learn in. Simply because before, like, if we wanted an AI to interact with the world, we'd have to like put an iPad on a remote control car or something, and have it, run around the world.
Like, hey, don't bump into walls or chairs, and it's like, okay, and then it's like navigating everything.
Yeah, like you're getting Roomba. You ever get in the Roomba tram? You're a Roomba guy?
No, I always thought it was cool, but I never actually got into it.
Yeah.
Of course, I've watched the whole Michael Reeves video of him making a Roomba that screams when it bumps into stuff. But ultimately, like, I appreciate technology for what it is, and what it's becoming. But at the same time, when you buy something, are you buying it for the sake of shirking your duty to technology? Like, you bought your house, you bought your apartment, it is your responsibility to clean. It takes, 20 minutes to sweep, vacuum, or whatever. So you're going to spend $200 to $300 on a Roomba. Like, I'm not saying it like in like a technological, like, boomer kind of way, but there's a sense of happiness and, hey, I did that. I lost the chair again. There's like a sense of like, I did that, so I'm proud of it. But at the same time, you do it week in, just week after week after week after week, and it starts to wear you down. But what we don't realize is there's a mental stimulation to it. And that mental stimulation is also what prevents dementia. So I don't know, I'm kind of like really going off topic here.
No, go for it.
Are you familiar with digital dementia by chance?
No, it sounds interesting.
Okay, so it's actually not, I don't know how to put this without sounding...
Sorry, my dog's...
Hey, no worries. Lucy, come on.
12 a.m., Lucy. It's not the time to bark. Alright, digital dementia.
Digital dementia. So, we're kind of seeing it become a thing with older people getting smartphones. Now, mind you, they grew up in a community they grew up in a time where the only news they had was what was on TV. And it was always during a certain time. You either learned it through TV during certain times, or you learned it from people in your community. So this kind of goes back more to like the community days. Like you'd watch TV and you'd be like, oh, hey, the news is on, yay, it's 78 in your city, cool, all right. Instead of like now, you're like, before you even leave your bed, you can sit here and trigger your, Google or Siri and be like, hey, what's the weather like today? You'd be mid-shower and ask, hey, what's the news? People back then, they had to get up, they had to take their showers, get their morning coffees, wait for that time for the news, and now we just get it wherever. And because of it being just kind of handed on a silver plate whenever we ask, instead of being like, most people have 3 meal times a day, so they eat, morning, around noon, and dinner. And in the same aspect, it's like being told, when you get to be an adult, you can eat whenever, man. Like, sure, 3 p.m. Chick-fil-A, go for it. And then you kind of lose that relationship with food. Anyway, coming back to it, it's just this abstract example. Because they now have the allowance to access news and stuff whenever they want, their mind and how they grew up in life is not programmed to that. They're not used to it. So people in their 20s and their 30s are like, cool. This is something that I saw coming, something that abstractly has been growing from the internet. But people in their 50s and 60s and up, they're like, smartphone, yes. I can play games now, woohoo, when they raise their children, thinking video games are bad, and that affects their subconscious. And at the same time, because of that, they lose the mental stimulation of, waiting, of listening, of taking in the news. It's just there. And the lack of mental stimulation is what causes, not mental stimulation, hang on. I think it's cognitive ability, yeah. That causes dementia. Now, to counter that, and this is where it gets really cool, you have to add back the mental stimulation to reverse that growth. And believe it or not, that's where VR comes in. If you sat down on your phone, or you're playing the Xbox 360 on Modern Warfare 2 in 2010 with your buds, you're just sitting there with a controller in hand, staring at TV. If you're in VR, Rec Room, VR Chat, whatever, breeze tag, throwing frisbees around, it requires physical motion. You perceive what you see as real. And because of that cognitive thought, it's causing that mental stimulation. Like, for me to just walk across the room in VR, I don't have the fancy catwalk mini treadmills. Mind you, when they do become a thing, it's going to be amazing. But if I wanted to walk over there, I'd have to go, okay, where's my reason to walk over there? Is it because I see a poster on the wall, or, I want to see what that looks like up close? I have to be able to formulate a reason to go to that corner, go to that wall. Not just like, oh, hey, I'm going to go over there. If that's your thought behind it, it's not wrong. It's still a cognitive thought. But to appreciate that thought, you have to give recognition to it. And that's where it comes back to the circle. Everything does when I talk. People right now who don't experience VR in the same way we do, and they're just experiencing social media. They're scrolling down to see what their friends are doing initially, or to see the next coolest meme. But now they've been sitting on their phone for hours, watching videos, taking in ads, liking and sharing and liking, sharing and liking, sharing, constant. And initially they do it out of the curiosity of, hey, what's on the wall? I want to go over there and see it. And now they're just lost in transition to the wall. That walk to the corner, that walk to the wall never ended. So it's like walking somewhere and then going through a portal and just never having that final destination until you go, wait a second. That's right, that's the only reason I came here. Realizing it's been done, and realizing that you've been staring at the wall for 3 hours. So it's like they lose that sense of purpose. And that's what roots to dementia.
That's interesting. That's like a side effect that is so out of the normal realm of human uh interaction. Like there's no possible way that could have been predicted, because it's like we're in truly we're in the transitional generation, right? And
Absolutely.
like I think what is it? So there's millennials, there's Gen Z, and there's the younger generation. I think the generation after Gen Z will probably be have it pretty good, because for the most part, because we've
Absolutely.
had to go through like the transition, figuring out all this like stuff that's frying our brain, but also navigating it. They'll have their own issues too. But yeah, man, that's
It's kind of weird to think that we're all just test labs for the revolution of technology. Yeah.
yeah, the humans in like 50 years are just gonna be so crazy smart, I imagine. Some of them.
Oh, smart for sure, but like, can they mow their lawn?
Yeah, no. Can you go out in the woods and chop down some trees? The firewood. Yeah. Maybe if we have VR games of mowing lawns.
I could just send Julie out there with a steak knife, just going back and forth for 4 hours, like at hyper speed, chop down the tree.
Yeah, man. Well, maybe we'll have like the AI doing all the work, and then we'll have like, simulations of work to kind of give some something to do. Cookie clicker.
It's kind of funny you mentioned that. Some of the people like who buy VR who are at home because of COVID right now. I just realized it's going on YouTube. Sorry about that. Like they initially bought VR, for passing time, passing boredom, seeing what the next coolest thing was, because they have all this time in the world now. But they're like, oh, what's this silly job simulator thing? And I don't know if you've ever played Job Simulator and how chaotic it can get at times.
Sure.
But that job simulator bit, it's going to become a reality. You can play it seriously and get through everything, it's fine. But at the same time, what if like you've had a bad day in your technical, your theoretical work, and you just want to have that burst of rage or whatever. You had a bad Zoom meeting, or it's actually it's like 2050. You've had a bad big screen conference for work, because that is actually becoming a thing too. You just want to go take it out in a job simulation. You're no longer venting your anger about work through emotion so much. You have that outlet.
I always am kind of excited about like the new types of jobs that would open up. Like, say if you have like like a 13-year-old, instead of like going out and starting a business to mow the lawn, he could essentially work from his laptop and start making money. Like what I imagine would be like a company where you maybe put on like a headset and you're doing a task, right? Like a job simulator, but it's also using part of your GPU for like crypto mining. So then you're making some money while doing this arbitrary task, and then the company is also getting a cut. Very just basic concept, but like this idea of doing a task that maybe doesn't necessarily have a direct how do I say, like output. Like
You're saying it like in the aspect to where like if you have to relate it to the physical world, the simulation you would load up for work would be like, hey, I'm pushing a lawnmower to mow an actual person's lawn, like inside of VR while just sitting chair at home to get money. But you're saying it from like an aspect of like cryptocurrency or some way to like revolutionize, continue the technological revolution of humanity. Right?
sure. So like
Is that what I'm picking up?
yeah, a little bit like in the with the lawnmower example, like in the physical world, you're pushing a lawnmower and you're actually cutting the grass so that it's manicuring the lawn of your customer, right? But then I wonder if in the future we'll have simulations where you're doing a similar task, but it's not necessarily like you don't really need to mow a lawn. You don't really need to go through the motions of Job Simulator because it's a simulation. But I wonder if there will be companies that will have their employees do the tasks, but not like it won't be necessary to do the task, but just
like there's no real output to it.
Yeah. I wonder if
it's more of just like a monotonous, hey, I need you to do X, Y, Z, even though like Y and Z have no output, only X does.
Right. And as I'm saying it, it sounds like almost like hell. Like that would be a terrible job. But if it could be attached to something that where it's mutually beneficial, which is why I went to like crypto, where it's like, okay, maybe you're doing something, but the computer, it's using your computer as well. I don't know. It's, yeah, the idea of like people working from home, being able to just like kind of be one's own boss is interesting to me. I hope that becomes more accessible to people in the future.
Actually makes more sense, like especially as you're talking like in the future, and we can relate this back to AI. AI needs a source to like use its resources for, to learn. So like in the sense of like X, Y, and Z, where X is the only task that does anything, Y and Z tasks could benefit that AI to progress. Like, you know, you're like, oh, hey, let me type up this paper and, you know, Google this topic. But really, what you're Googling is going to feed the AI knowledge. I know I talked again back into a circle with AI, but that's what I do. But yeah, I could see that happening where it benefits the company still that you're working for without actually having to root to for an task.
Like 10-year-olds just like teaching AI how to, like like do homework and stuff. Yeah, it's interesting.
It's back in the day when they're like, hey, you're not gonna have a calculator in your bucket. Joke's on you. Yes, we do.
Yeah, man, I can't remember the last time I did math in my head. Just like offloading. You know, it's I was actually thinking about this the other day. It's like, it's kind of, it gives more room, at least the way my brain works, is like if I can offload certain things to Google or offload certain things to the computer, then it's like, okay, I don't have to worry about that. I can just focus on the other thing at hand, which would be blasphemy. My elementary school teacher would be.
To be fair, they had to work with what they were given at the time, so.
Yeah. True.
I do think that the brain elasticity of that is kind of amazing to think about. Like, as humans, we don't technically need to know math, as long as one human knows math and could program it into Google. We'll lose a lot of principles because that one person has to like dedicate their entire life to math. You know, I'm just using math as like the solid example here. But though, you know, like maybe it'd be like Bible. You know, it's a long history of math. You can't learn Einstein overnight. But like if we can offload the entirety like school course into just saying, hey, you know, if you ever need to figure out 2 + 2, you know, here's the keys for it on the keyboard, press enter in Google, you'll get the answer. Like, you don't need to do that. And then that kind of eliminates logical thought, which eliminates critical thinking. And then suddenly we're all sheep.
Yeah, then suddenly 2 + 2 = 3.
Yep.
No, I think that is kind of a little bit of a frightening thought that it will likely go towards, instead of teaching kids how to do math, it will be teaching kids how to look for the answer to math, which I can see how it could flip to where then the critical thinking goes, but I would hope that it would go the adverse way where now that we don't have to teach math, we could teach more critical thinking, or more of like the different aspects of thought. Kind of going back to dopamine as well, like if we do lose the, like I one of my favorite things is like putting on some music and like mopping the floor and just like cleaning, right? If we lose, like if I had a robot doing that, I would lose that satisfaction of cleaning, but I think you'd gain it like tenfold with the extra time, if I'm wise with the extra time that is gained in like learning new things that have other so-called dopamine hits. That'd be the hope, at least.
Replacing one dopamine source for another.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Replace mopping with building a house in Minecraft. No.
Yeah. This is good. Yeah, no, there's no better feeling than finishing that last block on the
for sure
well-designed Minecraft house.
Yeah, if you did it that way, then you kind of lose that like that headspace you're in while you're mopping. Like, you know how to mop. Like, you know, it's a simple task, so you are in your own head. You're listening to the music, and you know, you're listening to stuff that's more like lo-fi, low beat, or you know, something that just really gets your brain moving. You know, you're thinking about other things. So if you replace mopping with something where the task requires you to think about only the task, you're kind of replacing it with that like cognitive ability to critically think. That is, if you use the task the wrong way, obviously. You know, it's time management, task coefficiency. It's crazy to think about that one day something as simple as mopping the floor or mowing the lawn, you know, could just not be a thing, and that may be the cause for worldwide depression. Something as simple as that.
I would hope that we could find other tasks that you know, produce that same level of like thinking, where you're doing something but also thinking about it, not fully centered on the task, kind of entering that flow state, right? And I'm sure, you know, I'm sure there'll be people that just don't. They'll just kind of like, you know, become like Wall-E, just like sit there and you know, just press buttons for stuff. But I always wonder like what the majority like of the population will go towards. I don't know. I wish I could have like a window, like look, just see what it's like in 2060, 2070.
I think it'll be split, like between the Wall-E generation. That's just like, oh, you know, Amazon buttons for smoothies and everything. And have you read the novel Ready Player One?
Yeah.
By chance? Okay, so it's going to be like, you're going to be kind of separating two groups. I'm just using two groups. There could be like 17, you know, just example.
Sure.
You have your Wall-E instant satisfaction at a butt group. And then you have your gamer group who, you know, they have the VR treadmills and everything, and they're actually seeking that mental stimulation and dopamine through video games. You know, it's like what you said, that last block of a Minecraft house is the most satisfying. So they're seeking that high. And they're constantly getting it. Whereas the other group is just pressing a button, getting their using like AR screens to watch movies constantly. I could see how that would work with two groups.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
At least if I'm looking to personal experience, it seems the most satisfaction is, or the times where I feel most fulfilled in life, like not depressed, not anxious, is usually when there's some type of like working for something, you know, like having to put in the effort to do it, because it's like that old Rolling Stones song, "Can't Get No Satisfaction." It's like,
that's correct.
it's just a balance, you know. I mean, sometimes, you know, like on Sundays, Yeah, I just want to sit on the couch and freaking press a button, get Cheetos delivered, and watch a movie. So
It's like it's nice to know you can do that, but at the same time,
yeah.
it's nice to also work for stuff. So it goes both ways.
And every day working for stuff is not good too, and every day doing the other thing is not good. It's all a balance. It's like
you gotta let brain rest.
Yeah, man. Think back to 1800s. What was their? I'm sure their working was for an average guy going down to the shipyard. He had to work a day on the shipyard, and then maybe the dopamine would be going to the bar at night, right?
Yeah.
And you'd have people that were in the bar every day, kind of wasting their life away, or you had people that were in the shipyard every day, basically having no life, just working all the time.
I feel like their dopamine, and I think the dopamine in that case, because there'd be a social construct for dopamine, which would be the bar.
Sure.
And then there's the financial dopamine part. Those people working at the shipyard are spending their money, on house, family, kids, whatever. And seeing them come up is where they go. So you'd have your social group. And I'm not saying this does kind of relate to real life, but also at the same time, it's hypothetical. So the social group that spends all their money at the bar, they're never going to peak to the next level of dopamine. All their financial aspects that they get from work, it stops here. It stops here at this line. Whereas the people who are using it on the house and their family and kids, it's constantly increasing. It's going to keep going up. And then they're going to plateau, somewhere up here and retire, get a different job, whatever.
Yeah.
Keep moving forward. It's always about the next hit. It's weird to say that in a non-drug abuse way, because
just gotta get the next hit, man. Gotta get that dopamine,
yeah.
Virtual dopamine.
Give me that dopamine. Let me mow your grass.
Just one more. That's funny. I guess on a lighter note, do you have any anime recommendations or VR game recommendations?
That's anime recommendations. That's a loaded question. I like to go back to the classics a lot because currently we see a lot of anime that kind of follow the same trend. Let's give this character a pool of 7 or maybe 1 of 10 different personalities that we've been seeing lately, and it's the same way with every character a lot. But I like to kind of go back to classics where you don't have your now I was kind of having this conversation in the Discord earlier, where you don't have your basic tsundere, dare kind of stuff going on with the same characters. It's kind of actually, hey, here's your narrative. So I guess my recommendation is Spice and Wolf. It shows its age at times for sure, but it's more the conflict is through trade and economics. So it requires you to kind of think how it works, in a sense. And I'm just gonna pull straight from the anime for if you haven't watched it, I apologize. Spoiler alert. Mute now. Need to. There's a scene where Holo, who is the wolf in Spice and Wolf, she eats a bunch of apples, and then she throws the core of the apples to a pile of leather or hide or something. And the guy who drives the cart, his name is Lawrence, he gets mad because she doesn't dispose of it the right way, and she's eaten 50 silver worth of apples. And she's like, oh, don't worry about it, blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, well, I need to sell these, and they're not going to fetch that 50 silver you spent on apples. And then when he goes to sell it, she's like, oh, you're too nice giving him that price. And he's like, what? He's kind of lost. He doesn't know what's going on. And she's like, smell him, smell the hide. And he's like, the customer smells the hide, and he's like, oh, these smell amazing, because of course the apples have been sitting on them all day, so it doesn't hit you until that moment. And then she haggles a higher price that fetches back more than the 50 silver worth of apples that she spent on, it's weird to think about in that sense, but it's constantly pushing your mind forward with how to think of a situation, because another element has come in, played a part, rather than, oh hey, there's the bad guy, he's really strong, I've lost, let me go train up for 2 weeks or 12 episodes, go back and beat him in like 5 seconds.
Yeah. That's interesting. So what's the setting? Is it like I'm imagining like
it's like 1800s. They still have like maybe 1700. It's obviously it's the fantasy aspect of anime where like there's no cars or airships. It's all like actual boats and ships, wagon carriage kind of thing.
Cool. And what's it called?
But they had like a fantasy aspect to it. Spice and Wolf.
Spice and Wolf. I'm gonna check that out. Yeah, I like stuff that kind of makes you think, because it's I like SAO and those action stuff are fun, but yeah, that sounds interesting.
Mm-hmm. And to build onto your Carol and Tuesday recommendation,
okay.
I actually have a classic for that too. There's an anime called Chop Mongolian Squad or Mongolian Chop Squad. I think it's Mongolian Chop. Anyways, about a teenager in high school, of course, Japan. Why not? It's kind of a more grungy aspect. He wants to learn a guitar, but the guitar he gets has a backstory that connects him with other characters, and eventually he makes his way through the music industry. But like it does so in like such a grungy setting that it's like it's kind of a darker contrast to Carol and Tuesday, where they have the talent shows going on.
Nice.
As for VR games, I don't know. I'm not like, when it comes down to it, VR games as a whole, I kind of accept in a different sense. There's like the social aspect of VR game, and then there's like the hey, I'm gonna go do X, Y, Z and get all these missions done. So when it comes to like social aspect of it, I would say Rec Room. If you can get past the fact that there are like 100,000 kids in Rec Room, all the mini games inside are fun. And it's more than just Quest and the Rec Royale like Fortnite stuff going on. There's so much user content, very similar to VR chat, where if you can get past the fact that you're just hanging out with a bunch of kids and find that adult group within Rec Room, you're gonna have a blast. And then like in a non-social aspect for VR only, I guess I would say, because I play a lot of Elite Dangerous in VR, so it's very much like not a VR only game, but it's like one of the guilty pleasures.
That's a great game.
There's just something about being inside of a ship,
so
man.
immersive.
Like, once you put your controllers in the right spot, you're just like, this is it. I have achieved what SpaceX has. But as for non-game side of VR, I would definitely say Google Earth VR is possibly one of the best things. And it's there's such a reason behind it. You would think, oh, Google Earth VR is just street view and you can walk around. Yeah, it is. But the history behind Google Earth VR is what gets me. This thing has been in production since 2003. Like when they started the whole like top-down helicopter shots and getting 360 cameras on cars to go drive down streets. It's been a thing since 2003. They've just simply went, oh, you know what? We can add this to VR. It's already, like, the framework is already done. And it's so cool to think about it in that way. There's obviously cities where, they have the 3D skyscrapers and everything. And then they have the cities where, like, they have skyscrapers, but, it's still really flat to the ground. And give it, like, a year. Say, like, I like to visit Japan. Like, I start in the rural areas, work my way up through a train, I mean, that's kind of what you did with this 24-hour standing stuff. But, like, as you get closer, you see the cities pop up. These are obviously the bigger ones, and you can see more. But it's the ability to travel without paying the costs. It's the ability to walk down a street in Japan and not have, and this is weird to say, not have that human interaction. People staring at you going, oh, hey, look, he's an outsider, or, is he lost? It's the ability to just go somewhere, drop wherever you want, stop in the middle of the road if you want to, and just look around. It's not stereoscopic vision, but it's pretty close.
Yeah. I imagine the corporate overlords at Google, blessed be their names, are going to be the ones that probably map the entire Earth first. I mean, they, like you mentioned, they've already done it for the most part, but I mean, actually 3D space for the majority of the world, which makes me think I think there was an article that came out a couple weeks ago where I'm pretty sure it was people at Google, where they figured out how to stream volumetric video over the web, where it's literally placing a camera in the room, and you can just visit the physical place as it's happening in real time.
Are you talking about the light field camera?
Yeah, I think it was a light field camera.
Where it's got like 18 different cameras, and they're all kind of staggered, and allows you to kind of do a small 6 degrees of freedom in a space.
Yeah. But even in the future, if you could have a place like that, say Google wants to have a 24/7 copy of the circular bean in Chicago. You know what I'm talking about? The metallic bean. Imagine if they had a bunch of light field cameras around that is fully tracking the people, the weather, the night, the day, and then you can just plug in and go there. And then thinking even bigger, would we have entire cities like that, entire countrysides where basically a real-time copy of the Earth that could be visited any time? I imagine Google would probably be the first to do it.
I feel like that's actually possible right now. And bear with me because I kind of want to follow this hypothetically, because it may actually become a thing soon. I don't know. So say you take a zoo. Let's just use a zoo. I don't know if the Atlanta Zoo, the St. Louis Zoo, whatever zoo you want. And you take a day and you close it down. In that day, you go through with this really fancy high-tech group of 3D scanners. You scan everything you can. You also go through and you capture the fabric meshes, the textures and everything, so you can apply it in that 3D environment. You just build into it. Now here's where it gets further. How do you track the animals? How do you track the people? Well, it's a VR thing, so we don't need the people. It's a zoo, we need the animals. So in that sense, you digitally reconstruct the animal, a 3D modeling application. And then real time, you have a 3D track camera in that zoo that's watching the animal. So, you want to go watch the flamingos. In real time, what you're seeing, the flamingo flies across the pond, or, it's walking across the pond. You would see what's happening in real time in VR through a 3D of a flamingo.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah. And then it comes down to, how much is it going to cost to go into that simulation for 2 hours?
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be God, I would almost prefer that. I always feel bad for the animals in the zoos.
Yeah.
It's nice for the kids, but
kind of just bred in captivity kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess we are too. We're in houses and stuff.
That's true.
At least we can drive.
It's kind of weird to think though, that would only be a visual experience, whether it's an on-rails experience where you're walking through the park, or it's a free roam, you can go wherever. It's still just visual. Those kind of environments, it's weird to say this as an adult, because I used to go to the St. Louis Zoo at least once a year in the summer. But there's a certain smell to it. When you get to the zoo, It's not like a oh hey, every animal's pooped in the zoo kind of thing, but there's like an energy to it. You know, nature itself has an energy, and it's hard to replicate that.
Yeah.
Like, you can go outside and, you know, of course it's the summer for Northern Hemisphere, so it's hot and muggy. But if you go, like, during the morning when it's, like, you know, upper 70s, and you're just, like, sitting outside in a chair, you're going to get more, like, positive feeling from that than 7 a.m. staring out the window.
Yeah.
Just an energy to being outside, and I think that's also going to cause future problems for the future of humanity as we, like, bring ourselves to work more inside, become more like cavemen.
Yeah, I definitely think some people will. It almost though highlights the balance of going outside. So it's like,
It truly does.
what, I don't know about you, but like when I'm working all day inside and then I go outside, it's so much nicer. Like if I'm in VR.
Oh no, I get that.
Yeah, man. If I'm in VR all day and then I go out, it's like, this is what reality is like. You know, the trees are breezing.
Fresh air, yes.
I forgot.
It's like the simple thing. Like, you know, you say, fresh air, and people are like, yes, fresh air, of course. That's what's there.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, it's like kind of like a small rediscovery.
It really is.
Like at what you said at the end of the week in VR, where you go outside and you're just like, whoa, you know. And there's like this natural energy to everything. It's the same thing. I think what's going to happen in the future, you're going to have people who work 5 days a week, you know, through whatever AR, VR, XR application to do stuff. You know, say you do control the robot who mows lawns for other people's houses, but really you're controlling a drone that moves around the lawnmower. But like on your 2 days off, you know, you go outside. And I think that's where you're going to see the happiness split. It's the people who stay inside, you know, they don't have that dopamine like increase from, you know, going outside and interacting as like the people who go outside do. But simultaneously they could through technology. You know, this is hypothetical. Future is still possible. You know, it can go both ways. It can be as simple as like they just open a window, you know, with the fan coming in. And I don't know about you, but that also helps.
Yeah, man. That fresh air.
I mean, we're kind of straying from that too. Yeah, we're kind of straying from that too. Like the normalcy of, or normality of like air conditioning and heating. You know, central, like climate control in the house. People don't open their windows and have box fans like they used to. You know, like in a first world perspective. Obviously, it's still a thing in the rest of the world, and we're absolutely reaping the benefits of it. But like, there are households where if you did that, it would be like, you know, like a sin. You know, it's like, what are you doing?
That was
AC set at 78. It's the summertime, man, or 72 or whatever.
Yeah. That was my household. It was,
Yeah.
Yeah, because it runs down the bill, doesn't it? If you have the AC going in the
For sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like again an effect of technology that could not have been predicted, but I feel like we are navigating into it. At least hopefully in a positive way, a net positive.
We are regressing back into being cavemen, but instead of cave drawings, it's technology. It's so weird to say that.
That's a bleak view, man.
Yeah.
I like to think.
Like,
We'll
I
be
mean,
like
really think
smart
about it, though.
cavemen, though.
Yeah. I mean, we left the cave, you know, grunting and, you know, long hair and everything, and now we're kind of coming back into it with like a cart full of computers, and I don't know. It's kind of it's weird to think about it. You know, homes are the place to be, like to know you're safe, and in the same aspect, that's a cave, isn't it?
Yeah,
For a caveman.
it's true. it's like yeah, I mean, I feel like that's the optimal, one of the optimal ways to function is like, you know, having the place, having the walls around where you know this is the place for myself, my family, community, and then facing the world from that perspective. Hopefully in the future, our walls won't just be holograms or illusions, but will still be secure.
Yeah. Hopefully we still lead a cave.
Oh,
It's definitely a big part of it.
yeah. And hopefully we can also load into cave simulations, because that'd be pretty cool.
Oh, imagine that. You live at home, you just scan your whole house to become a cave. Like your Steam home environment is just a
It's
cave.
just the cave.
The door to your room where it's at is like the cave entrance. And you're like, I can't go over there because I'll run into a wall. And like subconsciously you believe leaving your house becomes a bad thing because of it.
Oh, that's messed up. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like your
it's a little dark.
Your stove would just be like a fire pit. My God, that's funny. Well, Eric, this has been a great conversation, man. Thanks for
Yeah, man, absolutely. Thanks.
yeah, man. I'd love to have you on again sometime. This is great.
Thanks for having me. I'm be sure to come back.
Right on.